So our final session before lunch, I'd like to introduce Sam Downie, who's an experienced VR producer and an occasional journalist for the BBC, and wears several other hats, which he will presumably tell you about, and talking about 360-degree docs. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name's Sam Downie. I'm a occasional journalist for BBC Click, and on World Service, and I also do many other things. So these are some of the clients which I've worked with. A lot of international clients, including Apple, Starbucks. I helped to redesign their website. Beta tester for Twitter. Reporter for Channel 4 News. I've worked for Watershed, Twit TV. I'm a correspondent on Radio 2, Wikipedia. Helped to launch the world's first Wikipedia town, which is Monmouth in Wales. And I've worked for ITV. I helped to co-develop the platform of different parts of Ustream TV for allow people to webcast live online. And of course, with Google, and Twitch is also another webcasting platform which came out of Justin.tv. So, occasionally I get my brain wired up. So this is me with my brain wired up because I have epilepsy. I've got a rare syndrome of epilepsy, which is called Dravet. As I've mentioned, I've got over 20 years worth of working as a presenter and producer in radio and TV, and also at conferences, and being a voiceover in games. And I've done one game in VR, but I've also done documentaries and film. I've mentioned I do present items on technology, on gadgets and BBC World Service, on Click. I've also done a gadget show, which I don't mention there. I occasionally pop up on Twit TV, which I mentioned. I'm a website designer, working in WordPress. Clients including I've done Starbucks, beta tester for Twitter. I've worked with venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, and I go there every November for visits to San Francisco, but also I go to and help to organize a unique event called Epilepsy Awareness Day. And you've got the URL down in the bottom right-hand corner for it. It's a big awareness day and also expo that takes place in Disneyland. We take it over for 3 days, and I mean literally take it over for 3 days. Hold on a minute. So, we get everyone wearing a purple t-shirt. So, and it's a wonderful, really great event. Over 10,500 people in Disneyland wearing this t-shirt, talking about epilepsy and other brain conditions. So it's a really fascinating event, and whilst I'm there, I make films. So some of those films you can find online, but if you go to epilepsyawarenessday.org, you'll find videos and more information about the event. Finally, I'm also a skeptic, and I do talks on health fraud, scams, and pseudoscience. So why an interest in 360 storytelling? Well, firstly, it took me a while. Yes, I was a skeptic and platform for VR, but I got used to it eventually. It's engaging, creative, capsulating, and innovative for me. I play games, which made in Unity, which are mostly being talked about here at the conference, but also love watching films produced in VR, which make you wonder and question things. I bought a 360 camera, a Theta S, and started to take photos and video. Recently, I took it up to Orkney Islands and worked with BBC on a documentary about the Orkney Islands, and I put the Theta S directly into various places where people lived in Neolithic times. Those photos will be online fairly soon. So I'm now editing 360 films on Final Cut Pro on Apple. So my talk today is about producing a 360 video on the subject of domestic violence and abuse. So really hard subject to talk about, but here goes. So what I'm going to discuss for you in this talk is who the client is I've worked with in Bristol, what is the subject matter. Subject matter is domestic violence and abuse. why you remix a film which was originally made in 2D, make it into 360 VR. It's a short film, so I'll talk to you briefly about how it was made. How did I turn it into 360 VR? What's a creative process? And then at the end, I'll show you the final edit, which is a debut here at VR World Conference 2017. First of all, let's start with this. If 360 camera is a person, then who is that person supposed to be? You've got to think, if you're filming with a Theta S, for example, filming a video, and that camera is going to be a person. What is the experience? So, audience participation. What is your viewpoint? I've got an orange here. When I'm editing 360 video and also filming video, I always carry something round with me. As you know, it's an orange. It's round because you've got to think geometrically, and you've got to think about shapes of how the viewer is going to view your video. This is round, so imagine if you cut it in half, you get 180 degrees. It's 360 total. So your viewpoint, you should, my saying is, be able to fit your head inside an orange, because if you peel back and just have the peel, that is your projection screen that you're projecting onto. And I'll come on to some problems that when you're projecting onto a round surface, it becomes problematic within Final Cut. So here's the clients which I'm working with. They are called Gender Free DV. They're based here in Bristol. So domestic violence, this charity formed. So it's all around us, but it affects not just women, but men, disabled, children, deaf people, blind people, gay, bi, transgender. So it's a fascinating subject. So question is why do you hear from them, or why don't you hear from people who have been affected by domestic violence when they report crimes of abuse to police? So this charity fund started up. So I'm going to play you a short video from one of the founders in a moment. But here's some posters that came out from the charity, some stats. So male victims of domestic violence are reluctant to report abuse they suffer for fear of being accused of violence themselves. And so that's one poster on the left-hand side. And that's come from research from Teesside University, from social sciences departments and also business law. So these are all based on case studies. And so within research, men are always arrested under false charges, and their disclosure of being the victim are not taken seriously enough. So this is kind of what I'm concentrating on, and this is what one of the films I'm going to show you. So the other poster is quite dynamic. This was made purely by the charity with the support from Avon and Somerset Police. So, talking about Avon and Somerset Police, this is a recent campaign by them, which was started last November. And Gender Free DV had a really good input into how this came about and actually helped to change the police force's thinking in gender abuse and when these cases come about. So we helped to form this campaign with them, which was online, and it was really, really good, and it's still going today. So let's meet the director of this short film and also from Gender Free DV. This is Sean.
My name is Sean, and I am a filmmaker, TV director, a full-time father, and I'm an advocate as well.
Sean, tell me about Gender Free DV.
Well, Gender Free DV's got its genesis in a personal experience that I had, which was being falsely accused of domestic abuse. It was quite a shock, really, and I learnt when it happened to me, I was very naive, and I expected that everything would be very quickly resolved. My partner would be helped, and my children would receive support. But it's a very tough process that has got its roots in an ideology that doesn't always favour justice and child protection and family rights. And I knew none of this before this dreadful thing happened to me.
So why was Gender Free DV founded?
It's quite contentious, really, because the understanding of domestic abuse is based around violence against women and girls. It's a highly gendered, and it has been for decades, highly gendered way of approaching domestic abuse. But its roots is not in that. Its roots are in looking at domestic abuse as intergenerational family violence. So it was a bit of a challenge, really, to consider saying it's gender free. What it really is it's trying to be gender inclusive. It's trying to say that we shouldn't be determining domestic abuse and interpersonal violence based on gender. And that's a widely held belief and view that's felt certainly within the LGBT community, and the spread across disabled and the elderly. Once the campaign started, and it was there really to address anybody across the gender spectrum who wasn't being supported or felt left out of the debate, it very quickly garnered an awful lot of interest across the board from within the LGBT community, within the disabled community, if you can call them communities, but people who had different backgrounds. What people are known as silent survivors, elderly, disabled, LGBTQ, women abused by women, and men, all of them left out of the debate. Essentially, if you only consider this to be about gender, you only think about domestic abuse victims as being females between 20 and 35, and that is not the case.
Where can people find out more information about Gender Free DV?
So that kind of gives you a little bit of background around why the charity was set up. So, as Sean is a filmmaker, he set about making some films. And he gave me stems of one of his films of a deaf male. So these are the stems and the files which I got. So I imported them directly into Final Cut. And I first thought, okay, hang on, I've got a problem. This is a film that's made, which is 2D, it's flat. How do I turn it into 360? Okay, so this is the question. We've got a selection of these films. How do I turn it? How the hell do I turn it into 360? And it took me a day or so just to think about this. So I looked, searched online, and then found this. I came across a film director in America called Tim Westwood. It's Tim Dashwood. And he makes plugins for Premiere and Final Cut. And these plugins are really, really great. Real-time 360 VR. And so I'm going to concentrate on one plugin today, which is free. So you can get this from dashwood3d.com. To give you more information about this plugin, I'm going to play you a 2-minute video from their website.
Introducing Dashwood 360 VR Toolbox, offering real-time head-mounted display monitoring and a suite of utility plugins for Premiere Pro, After Effects, Motion, and Final Cut Pro on the Mac. The Dashwood 360 VR HMD Viewer app provides direct real-time playback to a head-mounted display while working on your 360-degree video in your favorite host app. The Oculus Rift DK2 is supported in the initial release, with support planned for other headsets coming to market in 2016. Dashwood's 360 VR Toolbox includes a feature-rich set of tools for both 2D and 3D 360-degree video. The Reorient Sphere plugin filter allows reorientation of equal rectangular, lat-long footage on the X, Y, or Z axis. The Project 2D on Sphere plugin allows placement of 2D elements in a 360 spherical scene. This allows for placement of logos or other elements anywhere in the scene and can be used to obscure the nadir. The filter can also be used in After Effects with the Reorient Sphere plugin to paint out the 360 array's tripod. Seamless plugin filters are also provided for blurring, sharpening, glow, and noise reduction without affecting the wraparound seams of the spherical scene. Cubic skybox and stereographic little planet projections are also possible with easy-to-use plugins. Project horizontal, upward, or downward-facing fisheye scenes into an equal rectangular panorama. Output keyframeable pan and scan 2D or stereoscopic 3D versions of your sequence with the HMD Preview plugin. These are just a few of the features we have released so far, and we have many more on the way. The 360 VR Toolbox public beta can be downloaded now from within the FX Factory plugin store and used for free as a watermarked trial. Purchasing a license will remove the watermarks and you will never be charged for future upgrades. Dashwood 360 VR Toolbox.
That now gives you a great platform of plugins to use to help you create 360 VR video within your editor of choice, Final Cut, Premiere, and so on. So I installed the plugin, and I'm going to talk about very briefly about one, which is a viewer, and it's free. So I installed it. I brought in my content from the video stems, and this is what I get with the 360 VR viewer. It allows me to move the viewer around in 360, and I've got several controls here on the left-hand side. So I've got overlays. As you can see, I've got front, right, left, bottom, top. So I can see where I can position my footage. I can also change the resolution. It says mono 360, but the other setting is for other video playouts. And also, I can look at my field of view. So I've selected 180, but I can also change that and zoom in and zoom out, just to check where I'm positioning my video footage on screen within this sphere. So, this is what it looks like when I can minimize the player and just take a look. And you can see my video content is actually positioned right in the middle on Final Cut's window. So that gives me an illustration of, I know now where is the top, where is the bottom, where is the left and right hand side and the middle, which is really crucial when you're doing 360 video. So I'll just move on. So I've got my content, I've imported it into it. So now it took me about 8 hours to work on this film with all this footage and also getting the right player, doing A/B testing, and I came up with a really good edit, and the video is now online. It's on YouTube, and so if you search for gender-free DV on YouTube, you can find the 360 video there, and it'll play back on your mobile phone and or your iPad or computer. But as this is a flat screen, I'm going to show you the flat version of this film. And here you go.
deaf domestic violence doesn't just happen to women. Gender Free DV, a Bristol-based charity working for those silent voices affected by domestic violence and abuse. Join us. Find us online at www.genderfreedv.co.uk. Thank you.
Okay, so this film is being used right now by Avon and Somerset Police in their police training. It's also being used by other police forces around the country, the Met, Wiltshire Police, also Gloucestershire Police and Wales Police Forces. I did a test, A/B test, showed them a flat version and the 360 version to police officers. And which version do you think they liked? They liked the 360 version because once you've got this video in front of your eyes and you can have this person, this victim, then they can emphasize with the victim and with the character. And it's been really, really helpful so far. So far, this has trained over 10,000 police officers. There's more 360 films in development. There's over 20 films, some of these on the Gender Free DV YouTube site, which will be changed into 360 video. So it's a kind of a important subject to talk about, and it's the only subject which has been talked about in VR like this in the world, and it's really, really great. So this is Gender Free DV, based here in Bristol, and they've helped to almost change the law and starting to change the perception of how police deal with domestic violence and abuse in the UK. So if you want to get the notes from what I've been talking about in this session, I've made a blog post where I've also got links to the videos and links to Tim Dashwood, to the plugins, and what you need. Of course, I haven't mentioned the prices. Dashwood plugins are $200, but of course you need a Mac and Final Cut to make the films and a camera as well. So that's it. Thank you from me. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to catch me occasionally on BBC, Click on BBC World Service, on Twit. I'm also going to be talking about technology on This Morning as well, and I'll be talking of course, about VR. And that's, please follow me on Twitter. So thank you for listening.